Hey guys, so you've probably seen quite a few reviews of this product here lately. This is the Jumper T-Lite. This is a new budget 2.4 gigahertz radio controller, and it has been really kind of hyped by many of the reviewers. And I have to say that I don't really share that opinion personally. I think it's sort of overhyped. And I'll explain in a second why I think this is the case. So I do not think that this is a bad product, but I do think it does have one or two major flaws that are more severe than others really put it in their videos. So let's dive right into it and let's take a closer look at the Jumper T-Lite and what I'm talking about with these flaws that I personally think are a bit of a showstopper for me with this radio here. And I mean, the upside is I think these are fixable. I think Jumper could fix these, but let's look at what I'm really talking about. All right, so when I first saw the Jumper T-Lites, I was also pretty hyped. I mean, on paper this does look really good. I was sort of hoping for a cheaper Tango 2. Basically, without the crossfire, but sort of a cheap alternative to a Tango 2 that is beginner friendly and cheap. And I really like this sort of compact style of radio controllers. And this thing has a lot of things speaking for it. So it's got Hall sensor gimbals, and it's super cheap. So 65 to 75 US dollars with Hall sensor gimbals. That's absolutely great. So Hall sensor gimbals, cheap. It comes with, the more expensive version comes with a 4-in-1 module, so that's actually great. And it does support 18650 batteries, so you have a battery tray in here. You can just pop an 18650 in there, which is absolutely cool that it uses one of the really most common batteries. And it does have a module bay, so you can add a module here, and it does support Ghost and Crossfire, which is really cool because I think, especially on beginner radios, it's quite important that they are sort of upgradable, can be upgraded to Crossfire if you're moving into, flying really seriously racing or doing long range and so on. So these are really the positives, I think, of this radio. So really seems kind of great, but for me, I think there is one thing that I immediately noticed that is really sort of a problem. Right, I think this angle here should be the best for you to be able to see what I'm talking about. So my issue with this radio is this limited space between the switches here on the left and right, especially if these on the bottom are up and these on the top are down. It's very tight in here, and no matter how I hold this radio, and yes, that's personal, but many others might have these issues too, I have to sort of wiggle a finger between these switches to be comfortable. So if I'm pinching, I have to hold it like this. If I'm thumbing, I sort of have to hold it like this. And this is very tight. This is very tight. My finger barely fits in here, and I have pretty average hands. People with larger fingers might not even be able to fit it in here. And really, I'm very close to accidentally flicking one of those switches. So that really is a problem. And I think it actually gets worse if you go into a little bit more detail and think about which switch you would use for what. Because the two position switches are the ones here on the bottom. So you're going to use one of them for arming, probably. Now, personally, what I would want to do, and Albert Kim already talked about this in his video, is have it disarmed, pointing away from me, and armed pointing towards me. The reason is that if I'm holding the radio like this, I want to be capable to quickly and instinctively disarm by just doing this. I can just quickly, my finger is resting on the switch and I can just quickly disarm. Now, what Albert suggested is to just reverse the arming switch, which I think is a problem, because if I do this, that means it's disarmed when it's up and armed when it's down. So let's assume I'm flying. I'm in an emergency. I quickly need to disarm. Then I sort of need to reach around the switch and flick it. That's not very intuitive. That's sort of, it's a bit awkward, and it costs like a second, which is a problem for me. I have the same problem personally on the other side, which I usually use for return to home. I also want to be able to just intuitively just flick it in an emergency. But that means that when I'm flying, all of the time, these have to be up, which is the position in which it really restricts the space here. And I think inverting this is a bit of a security issue, because really personally, I think this would cost me maybe in the beginning a few seconds, because I'm really not used to it, to, you know, get used to reaching around and flicking it. Even if I'm used to it, it just takes longer to reach around the button here and this arm than to just flick it down. But again, if I'm using them in a way that I can flick them down quickly, they have to be up all the time, and the space here is super restricted, and I might even accidentally disarm my quad or engage return to home accidentally, and that can make me lose my quad. So this is really very unfortunate, this whole issue here with the switches, and I have to say it does feel pretty awkward for me. It's just really awkward to have to sort of wiggle my fingers around these, and that everything is so tight here. And honestly, I really don't understand why Jumper didn't go for the same solution that TBS went for, and I think it wouldn't be really bad to copy it in that regard, because honestly, what the Tango here is just a switch, it's a regular switch. I mean, they didn't invent, you know, these buttons to push in these switches here, but they are much more ergonomic. I can really rest my hand comfortably on this, and I always know where it is, and I can quickly switch it, and there's no weird wiggling around and so on. So I don't understand why they went for using these sort of old school switches here, which also have another disadvantage, is that they are sort of making the radio bigger than it has to. I mean, it could be much more compact if these were in there, and also I think these are something that could break if you just throw this into a backpack. Right, and I also think that the switches aren't the only ergonomics problem, and I think honestly it's absolutely fair to compare the ergonomics of the Tango with the ergonomics of the Jumper T-Lite, although they are in very different price classes. Honestly, ergonomics, or the shape of the controller, isn't something that really should be defined by price. I think changing the shape of the mold really wouldn't affect it much, so I think it's fair to compare at least the ergonomics. And here, if I'm just holding the Jumper comfortably, if I would, when I'm pinching, you can see my fingers are sort of resting in the middle of the radio, and I have to move my hands outward to touch the gimbals, which is a bit, you know, it's a bit more uncomfortable. This would be the most comfortable position. This is how I actually have to hold it. If we look at the Tango, if I'm really holding this comfortably like this, my fingers are sort of right where the gimbals are. This is the most comfortable position without applying any extra force on my hand, and basically my fingers are where they should be. While again, in contrast here, they are sort of awkwardly in the middle, and I have to sort of hold, you know, bend them outwards, which I mean, the ergonomics of this are, for me, not perfect. I think that's also one reason why it's a bit overhyped in that regard. And then on top of that, I think there's another, this one small issue that is an easy fix, but is a bit embarrassing in my opinion. Let's put the antenna on if we're putting a battery in. And that is, first of all, it doesn't have any protection against inserting the battery the wrong way. So, and this happens very easily with 18650, so inserting this the wrong way would just kill your battery. There's no protection, which, I mean, honestly, this will mean that a lot of beginners might break their radio. Also, seeing where the plus and minus polarity is not too easy here. It's kind of, you know, it's not jumping out. There's a little plus here, that's all. So, but that's not really the issue, okay? It's got no protection, fine. But if I put an 18, and this is a VTC6, this is a very standard 18650. If I put this in, the contacts are too far away. This just really doesn't even touch both of them. So you have to go in with a screwdriver and bend these here outwards, which I specifically didn't do to show this here how it comes out of the box. So this is something that's a bit embarrassing. I mean, it shouldn't ship like this. It just doesn't work like this, and you have to start bending the contacts for it to work. That's not good in my opinion. That's not good quality control. And now the last issue I think there is that, yes, the thing does come with an external module bay you can mount on here. It supports the Crossfire Nano and the Ghost Nano, which is kind of pretty cool. But turns out the power supply inside the radio isn't really up to the task of Crossfire running on full power. So Jumper modified the product description and now says only up to 25 milliwatts is recommended. Otherwise, you're going to need an external current supply. So honestly, I think, is it really upgradable if you're limited to 25 milliwatts afterwards on a system that is supposed to be used for long range? I don't think it makes much sense because, I mean, especially if you're thinking about buying this for $75, then adding a Crossfire module for $75 on top. So you're already talking about $150, and then you're limited to 25 milliwatt. You know what? You might as well throw in another $40 and just get a Tango. So I think this is the other flaw, that it's on paper, it's upgradable, but then again, it's not really until the Jumper fixes this, because the power supply doesn't work with Crossfire on full power. So honestly, I think these things are, for me personally, really showstoppers. I mean, the awkwardness of the switches here, the overall ergonomics that aren't perfect. I mean, it's not that bad. They aren't bad, so it doesn't feel uncomfortable. And then these issues with the power supply for external modules are a reason why I wouldn't fully recommend this. I mean, this is really also only a first impression, and others might disagree, but still I think the other reviewers overhyped this and downplayed the flaws of this product. And I really hope, because I mean, this has a lot of potential, I really hope that Jumper will just fix these issues. They might just change these switches here for buttons, like on the Tango. They might put them in a different spot. So, I mean, one thing you could do is just remove the top ones here. If you're not using them, you can remove these and then it's going to be fine. So I think they could, by putting these somewhere else, they could solve this. They could solve the power supply. So probably a Pro version or version 2 of this is going to be fine. So my overall conclusion is that this is really not bad. It's pretty good. It's got a lot of potential. But I think for now it's a bit overhyped. Jumper needs to fix these issues it has first, and I think these flaws were a bit downplayed by other reviews, and I really just wanted to highlight these in this video. While, you know, I didn't want to bash on this product. It's really not bad, but honestly, it's got flaws, and I think you should sort of know about them. All right, guys. Hope you found this interesting and useful. Stay tuned. I'll do more videos on the Jumper here, really test it in action and let you know if I might have to change my mind on it. Alright, thanks guys, thanks for watching.